And we are live. Welcome to Olivia's Stories, ladies and gentlemen. Story number 1. I feel like I've ruined my husband's job and made his work difficult. It's all my fault, and it has to be the biggest mistake I've ever made in my life. I cheated on my husband. I gave in to the temptation, the costly temptation that kept showing up to me. They say that whoever finds a wife finds a good thing, but I don't think I've been a good discovery to my husband. I'm pretty sure he's hating me with every fiber in his bone right now. Hate is not an exaggeration. I even think it's an understatement. I can't even face my parents right now. What will I tell them? I cheated on my husband and might ruin his career and end his job. There's no way my parents would ever take me back after that. My husband did not just take revenge on me. He literally shattered me to pieces and made sure I regretted cheating on him. My husband did not let it go at all. He has ruined me in so many ways that I cannot even begin to describe the level of pain I feel. He made sure that he left no stone unturned. I am only realizing now that I have been through a whole lot. And it's crazy, but I can't deny the fact that everything I have been through is as a result of the big mistakes I've made. My name is Faith, and I'm a 24-year-old entrepreneur. I've been married to my husband, Leonard, for the past 2 years now. We dated for 2 years before we got married. I met my husband when I was 20 years old. Leonard is quite older than me, though. He's 27 years old. He's a banker, and he's a very smart one at that. Leonard is very hardworking, and I don't ever want to miss the chance of bragging about that. That's why the consequences of my actions are finally dawning on me, and I've realized that cheating on him has to be the worst mistake I've ever made. Cheating on Leonard wasn't an accident. I'll be the world's biggest liar if I come here and lie that it was an accident and I didn't know how it happened. I know exactly how everything happened, and that's why I'm currently disgusted at myself. It's normal for human beings to do things consciously, then regret it all later. I'm not different, and that's why I've come to share this big mistake with everyone. For the past 2 years of my marriage to Leonard, I've been myself, and he's been himself. We never let our work disrupt our marriage, and we always show up and show out for each other. Ever since I married Leonard, I've actually never met his boss until a few months ago. Sure, I've been to his workplace a couple of times, but I've never met anyone in particular, and he never bothered introducing me to any of them. I can't be the only one who's not familiar with everyone at my husband's workplace, right? Exactly 7 months ago, Leonard was invited to the end-of-the-year party his bank was holding. He asked me to be his +1, and I said yes in a heartbeat. I didn't want to ever miss a chance to support him. While we dressed up and chatted happily, I would have never guessed that the end-of-the-year party would be what caused my marriage doom. I had no idea that I was walking right into a trap. If I had known, I would have never gone to that party. Leonard bought me a nice dress and a pair of shoes. The color theme of the party was wine, and I didn't really have anything appropriate in that color, so he bought me something to wear. My sister is an upcoming makeup artist, and she's the one that helped me with my makeup that night. I feel like shouting her out, but I want to keep our identities a secret as much as I can. When Leonard and I arrived at the party, it was a lot to take in. I never really expected a bank's end-of-the-year party to be as extravagant as that one was. The mood was nice, and Leonard asked to properly introduce me to his colleagues. Before, I'd only come to his workplace once in a while and randomly greet anyone I came across at that particular moment. I felt excited to meet my husband's colleagues because he always told me so much about them. He introduced me to his friends first. They were very nice and welcoming, and most of them even told me just how smart my husband is. I felt like a proud wife that day because they were definitely telling the truth. Before Leonard could introduce me to his boss had something to attend to do. He left. Leonard and I just went around testing the cocktails and tasting the finger-licking food. I even forgot all about the person my husband wanted to introduce to me. But sometime into the party, his boss walked up to us and apologized for not being able to speak to us earlier. We didn't have a problem with it at all. Before I go on, I'd like to properly state that my husband's boss is actually not one of the owners of the bank. He's just the head of the department my husband works at in the bank. His name is Raphael, and he's 30 years old. When my husband introduced us, I didn't see it as a big deal, and I didn't take interest in him at all. Of course, I noticed that he held my hand a little longer than expected, but that was the only thing I'd noticed that was unusual. He didn't even stand with us for long before he left. My husband always talked about his colleagues, but he never really bragged about his boss, so I imagined that they didn't have a relationship outside of work. We went on with the evening and had as much fun as possible. I didn't see Raphael after that, and I honestly didn't even remember I met him. That party and our very first meeting was extremely insignificant, and it's not an understatement. There was nothing out of the ordinary that happened. The real drama started weeks after the first meeting with him. After the party, Leonard and I went home and chatted about everything that happened at the party. That's how we usually acted after every event we were able to attend together. Days after the event, I forgot all about the meeting and the party itself. Life went on as usual, and I focused on my business. As an entrepreneur, I find myself indulging in any business ideas I get. I like the concept of earning money and doing something productive. My best friend and I co-own a salon, and that has to be one of the most important businesses I indulge myself in. One day, I got an unexpected visitor. When I say unexpected visitor, to know you guys might have guessed right already. Raphael came to the salon. I didn't even take note of him or recognize him at first. I was busy with a customer, but my best friend came to meet me and said we had a customer who claims to know me. I got curious and decided to go see who she was talking about. I was very surprised to see my husband's boss, Raphael, with the young lady. I was very surprised, and I even had to do a double take because I could not believe my eyes. He introduced himself again and asked if I remembered him. I told him I did, and that was when he asked me to give him a minute of my time. I didn't know how to act because it felt awkward to be interacting with my husband's boss without him around. It was even more awkward because I only met him once. When he pulled me to the side to have a conversation, he told me that someone recommended him to come to my salon. I did not really understand how he suddenly got a recommendation to come to my salon and how he knew that I was the one that could own it. I got curious and asked him who had directed him to my salon. He just told me that he always heard from my husband that I owned a salon. To be honest, the whole conversation was awkward because I did not know how to address Raphael. After the awkward conversation and telling me how important business is, he told me that the young lady he brought with him was his niece, and she needed to have her hair done. He said he'd been looking for a salon where he knew someone, so he could drop his niece off and be rest assured that she would stay and have her hair done. According to him, his niece was quite rebellious, and she often ran away when he left her at places. That's why he decided to bring her to my salon when he found out I had a salon. I honestly found his explanation weird, but I needed to make money and had no problem with babysitting a teenager. I agreed to make sure she stays till he comes to pick her up after work. That was the arrangement we made before he left. My best friend got his niece's hair done while I focused on the customer I'd been working on before. Barely 4 hours later, he was back again to pick up his niece. He thanked me and said he was very grateful. I found his pleasantries weird because it was not a big deal that I let his niece stay at the salon for that long. Many people did that before and it was never a problem, but I accepted his thanks and told him that it was not a big deal. I just labeled the incident as pure coincidence. I did not want to think much about it because it was not a big deal. My best friend and I were actually happy because we felt like our salon was popular, lol. Only if I knew that what I thought to be a coincidence was not even a coincidence at all. When I got back home that day, I contemplated telling my husband what had happened. It was not a big deal, and I always had customers at the salon, so I didn't know if it was necessary to tell my husband. But after some time, I decided it was best I tell him so that he could thank his boss on my behalf. I wanted to properly thank him for patronizing me, and so I decided to tell my husband. When I told my husband, he did not see it as a big deal either. He told me that he had mentioned that I owned a salon at work many times, and maybe that was why his boss decided to patronize me. He agreed to thank him on my behalf, and that was it. Life went on, and I focused on my business as usual. But 2 weeks later, I got another unexpected visit from Raphael. He came with his niece again, and this time he said he wanted to get her hair washed. I thanked him for coming again, and then I washed his niece's hair. Unlike last time, he actually stayed till I washed the hair. I did not expect him to stay till I finished working because I expected him to go to work. I was curious, but I did not bother to ask him the question. I didn't want to intrude, and I was still very formal with him because he was my husband's boss. I just assumed that maybe he had the right to stay out of work for long because he was the boss of a particular department. After getting his niece's hair washed, I actually refused to collect money for the hair wash. Her hair wasn't even that dirty, and I did not have a lot of work to do. I just thanked him for coming, and then I decided to help his niece braid her hair into 2 pieces. He was not ready to accept my kind gesture, and he said business was business, and there was no need to give him a discount. I said I was just doing it because his niece did not have very dirty hair, and I barely did anything. He finally accepted the gesture and left with his niece. After he left, my best friend actually sat me down and told me that she had a feeling he was just looking for an excuse to come see me. I took everything she said as a joke and said it was inappropriate. I even feel like a fool as I write this because I can't believe that something so inappropriate happened. The fact that I found it awkward and inappropriate when my best friend spoke about it, and then I went on to do the exact opposite of what I condemned her for is crazy. My best friend first started speaking about everything as a joke, and she did not really seem serious. When I got back home that day, I refused to tell my husband about the encounter. I felt like if my best friend made a joke about him just coming to see me and using his niece as an excuse, my husband could have felt the same thing. I didn't want to bring up unnecessary ideas in his head, so I decided to keep the information to myself. After that day, I did not see Raphael for up to 1 month. To be honest, I even forgot all about what my best friend said to me. But the day Raphael came to the salon, I couldn't help but finally start understanding what my best friend meant. That day, he did not come with his niece. He came alone and asked to see me. Initially, I told him that I was busy with work because there were a lot of customers in the salon. I initially thought that I would be able to send him away because I felt uncomfortable speaking to him in private. That's why I said there were too many customers in the salon and that I was very busy. But to my surprise, he offered to wait for me till I was less busy. That really got me surprised because I did not expect him to offer to wait for me. I assumed that he would be very busy with work and did not have any time to waste. But that wasn't the case because he did not have a problem with waiting for me. I decided to intentionally waste his time and see if he would eventually get hard and leave. But he did not leave, guys. He stayed till I finished every single customer's hair. My best friend told me to decide and told me that she was right. She told me to tread carefully and that she could already see that he was looking for something. Her words confirmed all the fear I had in me, and I knew that something was going on. I finally went to speak to him and asked him why he came to the salon. He sensed that I was not really in a good mood and noticed how awkward I was asking. He told me that he was sorry for coming to my workplace suddenly, but it was important. I can't even begin to explain the level of awkwardness and shock I felt as he stood in front of me and spoke to me. My best friend had already put ideas in my head, and I knew that whatever was going on in his head could not be good at all. He told me that he could not stop thinking about me since he saw me at the party when my husband introduced us. He said he'd started looking for ways to meet me again, and that was why you asked around till he found out where my salon was. At first, when he started speaking, I tried to end the conversation and act like I was not listening to him. I was trying to give him the benefit of doubt and make him correct his words in case he had been making a mistake. But he refused to do that. He seemed to be very confident in what he was saying, and he did not change his words. I felt very weird, and I did not know what to say. That was the first time another man was speaking to me in such a way since I had gotten married. And it made me more uncomfortable that the person talking to me like that was my husband's boss. I told him that it was inappropriate for him to be speaking to me in that way. I said I would pretend like I did not hear everything he had said and pretend like you never came into the salon that day. That's what I told him, guys, because I did not want to disrespect my husband. But it seems like I ended up disrespecting me in the worst way anyway. Even after what I said, Raphael did not make a move to leave. I asked him to live politely again, but he refused. The only way I was able to make him leave was when I threatened to call my husband. He left immediately, but not after giving me his business card. Even though everything was surprising and it all felt like a bad dream, I knew that there was not anything good that could come out of entertaining Raphael. He was just infatuated and wanted to use me as his way of entertaining himself. I'd seen many movies about such situations, and I didn't want to fall prey to it. That's why it even hurts me most, now that I ended up falling prey to it, even after all the ways I tried to resist. I don't know how to tell you guys what I did when I got home that day. I know I will be judged and called several names, and I honestly do think I deserve it. I didn't tell Leonard what happened at the salon. It was mainly because I knew that telling him would raise his suspicions. I found it very embarrassing and awkward, and I didn't want him to have a bad working environment at work. That's when I realized that Raphael knew very well that I would never tell Leonard what he did, because I knew that he was Leonard's boss at work. He knew that I would try to protect Leonard at work, and that was why he was very confident. And I don't want this to get so long, so I'm going to start telling you everything in the most flashy way possible. After that day when Raphael told me his intentions, he kept coming to the salon every week. It was a very consistent visit, and even my best friend noticed. She advised me to talk to Leonard about it, but I refused. I chose to keep quiet about it. Maybe I actually liked the way he kept coming to the salon. I'm very ashamed of myself because I refused to tell Leonard about any of it. I just kept entertaining the visits and pretending like I did not notice any of it. My best friend warned me several times, but I refused to listen to her. So guys, Raphael did not just come empty-handed. He kept coming with gifts and several things. I don't know why or how they decided to be consistent. Less than a month after he started coming to the salon consistently, I foolishly started making conversation with him. Because I also work on the weekends at the salon, Raphael was able to come to see me on the weekend because he was not at work. Whenever he came over, we would spend hours chatting about random things. I didn't really know what I was even doing. I can't deny the fact that I kept indulging him in several ways. Weeks after he started visiting and I started indulging him, he started inviting me over to his house, and I went. I never told that my husband noticed anything. I'm very ashamed of myself, and I can't believe that I stooped so low. It was the only one of those visits to Raphael's house that things got to another stage, and that was when I officially cheated on my husband. Immediately it happened. I finally got to my senses and ran out of his house. I was so disgusted with myself that I took several showers after getting home. I felt like I committed the most outrageous thing, and in a way, that is the truth. I cheated on my husband with his own boss. There's nothing I could say to justify what I did, and that's why I know that I got everything I deserved. After the incident at Raphael's house, I stopped going to the salon for almost 1 month. I blocked his number and tried my best to avoid anything related to him. I didn't even let my husband touch me for days because I felt very guilty. It was very bad, but I am sure that I deserved everything. The guilt I felt was just the tip of the iceberg. The revenge that my husband ended up taking has to be the worst. He did not let me go easily, and he got a very bad revenge. I know that I shouldn't have expected anything less. I know that I had a very good marriage and there was nothing wrong with it. For the longest time, I kept on asking myself why I did what I did. I don't know what led me to do it. I held out for a very long time and I did not want to give in, but I ended up giving in. Even when he started coming to the salon regularly, I just kept telling myself that it was a temporary thing and I was just trying to keep myself entertained. But now I know I have just been making an excuse to lead myself into cheating on my husband. I've been slowly giving in without even knowing it. I acted like it was just a temporary thing, and I was just trying to humor myself, but it was all a lie. I can't keep lying to myself and pretend like I did not know where everything would have ended up. Why else would I entertain a man that clearly told me that he had feelings for me? I'm not a child, and I obviously knew that there was something you wanted from me. And I foolishly ended up giving to him at the detriment of my marriage, self-respect, and loyalty. Even while I was burying myself in my self-guilt and self-pity, I never imagined that my husband was aware of everything. I didn't know that he was aware of everything that had been going on. I thought that I was leaving him in the dark and that he would only know when I finally confessed the truth to him. I will be completely honest, because I am not trying to sugarcoat anything. If I am asked whether or not I actually planned on telling my husband the truth, I'll honestly say that I never thought of it. I knew that the truth would eventually come out one way or another, but I never really had the courage to tell him. That's why I know that I deserved everything you did to me. I kept lying to his face and pretending like everything was okay. It's even more scary that my husband knew the truth and found out on his own that I cheated on him with his boss. If you are wondering how he knew and how I found out that he was aware, I'll tell you now. I remember telling you at the start of this post that my husband is a very smart person. When I told you all that, I meant every word of it. He's very smart and attentive towards his environment, and there is no way you can hide anything from him. He notices every little detail, and that's how he was able to discover that something was wrong. Exactly 2 months ago, I got the shock of my life when Leonard did something very outrageous. Like I told you all, Leonard is a banker, and it only makes sense that I would save my money in the bank he works at. He's also the one that does my taxes for me and sorts everything out. Everything regarding my finances is done by my husband because he's a banker. Lol. I just stupidly made sure he was in charge of everything. He's even the one that helps me save. When I first got married to him, I was a very reckless spender. I'm not trying to say that I earned a lot of money. I ain't just the normal income, but I was a very reckless spender and I bought everything I saw. But when I married my husband, he started teaching me the art of saving. He taught me about finances and how to be a better entrepreneur. His advice really helped me, and that is why I started making him in charge of most things regarding my taxes and savings. Call me stupid, but there were even times when I would keep my money with him in case I was tempted to spend it. I was never worried because he had his own money, and he always returned it to me when I really needed it. Sometimes he would even reward me with some money when I saved a lot of money. I never imagined that the mutual trust we had would end up making me lose everything. I suddenly got a huge debit all right one day. Like I said, I'm an entrepreneur, so most of the money from my business is saved in the bank. My husband knows my PIN, and he's even the one in charge of most of my finances, like I said. I always save money with him sometimes, and the money is kept in his bank. On that particular day, all my money was gone. There was literally nothing left for me anymore. It felt like I was literally saying stars, guys. I was at the salon, and I practically bolted out of the salon and ran home. I didn't need a seer to tell me what had happened to my money. There was only one person who knew my PIN and was in charge of all my money. I knew that it had to be my husband who took the money, and I was not wrong. When I got home, he wasn't home, so I had to wait for him to return. When he came back, I proceeded to ask him what had happened to my money, and that was when I got another shock of my life. My husband slapped me hard on the face, and I fell back in fear. The rage and anger in his eyes gave me goosebumps, and I swear that I can still see the image of how angry he had been. He shook his head infinitesimally and said to me that I had been the worst decision he had ever made in his life. Those words literally pierced into my skin. I don't know if writing this would ever be able to describe just how much hatred I saw in his eyes. Leonard looked at me like I had been so disgusting. He told me that I had to be a fool because I was very loose and stupid. I was so shocked by everything that not even a single word came out from her mouth. I was just too stunned to speak, and I knew there was nothing I could say that would make any sense. He proceeded to tell me how he had been aware of the fact that I have been cheating on him. Yes, guys, he has been aware of it for some time. He called me dumb for thinking I could mess with him and get away with it. The amount of anger I saw in Leonard that day was very foreign to me. I'd never seen him so angry, and I never believed that he could be that upset. I was even very shocked that he had found out I was cheating on him. He told me how he suspected something was up when I told him his boss had visited my salon. Apparently, he was actually not on good terms with his boss, and so when he heard that his boss came to my salon, he knew that something was up, but he refused to tell me about it. He had hired someone to keep an eye on me, and that person has been giving him reports of everything I had been up to. Even the day I followed Raphael to his house, Leonard was aware of it. I was very shocked, and I asked him why he never confronted me. He told me that he preferred giving me a taste of my own medicine by keeping me in the dark till he got his revenge. I asked him why he never tried to stop me even before Raphael and I had taken things to the next level. Leonard told me that he didn't care what I ended up doing. He wanted to know I would still be loyal to him, and he got his answer. He told me that all the money I'd saved with him and the money in his bank was now his. I could not even believe my ears. Leonard was not ready to change your mind even after I begged. My best friend's money was also in his bank, and I knew that she would soon ask for it. It felt like the whole world had suddenly stopped, and I was in the midst of a lot of chaos. Before I could even get my thoughts together, Leonard tossed the divorce papers on the table. I could visibly see that he had already signed the divorce papers. There was nothing I could do, and I accepted the consequences of my actions. I asked Leonard to forgive me and that I was very sorry for everything I did to him. But Leonard told me that he would never give me the satisfaction of granting me forgiveness. As if all that was not enough, he asked me to leave the house immediately. I had no way to go and I was broke, but he didn't care. Even though I had been going through a lot that day, I asked him what would happen at his workplace now. Leonard looked me in the eye and told me that he was not going to do anything about it. He said I was not worth losing his job over. He told me that he will still go to work and pretend like his boss didn't do anything. But I knew that Leonard was just bluffing. I knew that he was still going to do something. I'm very worried that his career is going to suffer because of me. Men have ego, and they will never let something like this go. I feel really bad, and I know that I am to blame. I already feel enough guilt, and I don't think I'll be able to handle it if he loses his job because of me. Leonard made it clear that I was just a stupid mistake. That was all Leonard said to me before he kicked me out of the house. It's been 2 months now, and I am now wallowing in my own self-pity. Raphael never contacted me, even though I'm sure he heard of what happened. The rumors spread like wildfire, and I'm sure everyone in our city knows the truth. I can see that I was just a pawn in his game. He had issues with my husband at work and decided to use me to get on my husband's nerves. I was stupid enough to fall for everything and end up as the collateral damage. I signed the divorce papers, and our divorce is still in process. I don't know how I'm going to survive the next few weeks, but I guess I'll survive just like I've survived for the past 2 months. I don't know what to do, Reddit. My guilt is eating me up. I have a court hearing in a few minutes, so I will end this update here. I'll make an update soon after the divorce finalized. Update. I'm now a divorced woman. I cannot even believe that my marriage did not last 3 years. I cannot believe that I made myself fall prey to a lot of things. I am miserable, Reddit. I don't know how to get my life back together. The comments were just as outrageous as I thought they'd be. I didn't expect anything else. You all didn't disappoint at all. I'm still thankful for the comments because it's helped me work on myself even though it's been difficult. The divorce was finalized a few days ago, and since there are no children involved, there was less drama. I got alimony even though it was cut down to the minimum. And I sound like a greedy woman, but what can I do? Leonard took every cent and penny that belonged to me. I'm broke, and I even owe my best friend a lot of money. I tried taking up the case in court, but I lost even before the case began. I didn't have money to hire a lawyer, so I was advised by my parents to just let it go. My parents are devastated, and they do not want to talk to me. The only person that has been accommodating is my best friend. She keeps reminding me of her money, and she's also very angry with me, but she has been nice enough to let me stay with her. I discovered that there was actually a lot of drama in Leonard's workplace. Apparently, Leonard already had a fight with his boss. Since his boss is not directly the owner of the bank and is just the head of Leonard's department, he could not do anything to sabotage his career like I feared. Leonard is still working at his bank, and that just makes me pity myself more. The boss and Leonard are trying to keep a cordial relationship at work, and nothing really changed for them. But I am here suffering a lot because of the decision me and Raphael made. The only difference is that Raphael is not at the receiving end of all the drama. I don't think there's anything that could ever describe the level of self-hate I feel right now. But I think I'll be a narcissist if I didn't feel guilty at all. I'd hate myself if I didn't feel bad for what I did. I'm focusing on my business right now so I can be able to pay my best friend back. I'll stop the update, guys. That's all that's been happening in my life. I'm thankful that I started this journey and decided to share my story. Thank you all for listening to me. You know, sometimes we do things just because of lust or greed, or I don't know how I can put this, but we ladies sometimes do things without thinking, and when karma visits us, we start regretting and end up asking yourself what is wrong with you, or what if I did this or that? And if I didn't listen to, I wouldn't have gotten myself into this mess. A lot of things start ringing in your mind, and reality kicks in like an unexpected tornado. To tell the truth, I regret and will always regret what I did, because it showed how weak and not being able to avoid temptation I was. I miss him so much, but there is actually nothing I could do. I messed up, and it is not anyone's fault but mine. I had brought this upon myself. My stupid actions cost me my future love. I didn't know, okay. I got tempted only to find out that I got tempted in the wrong place and at the wrong time. Now I'm suffering the consequences. Please tell me what I should do. So my story goes like this. I, female 25, met this handsome man at a grocery store. I was going with my little sister, 13, trying to buy a few things for the family since it was almost time for Christmas. So this handsome man came into the food aisle that we were in. I think he was lost because he asked where he could get packs of M&Ms. I directed him to another store that sold bulk packs because he wanted bulk packs. My loud sister then told the guy that he looked cute. How embarrassing. Sigh. To my surprise, the guy smiled at her and appreciated the compliment. A few days later, I found out that he was actually staying around the neighborhood. I asked myself how come he didn't know where the M&M's bulk packs were sold if he was around. He liked morning jogs, so I saw him when I was taking out the trash. He saw me and greeted. I had thought he had forgotten about me, but surprisingly he didn't. So we had small chats and exchanged our names. He told me that he was Kevin, male 26. Our good conversation was cut off, but some old man, who I later figured out was his stepdad. So the man interrupted our conversation to tell him that he should get inside. I asked myself how old was Kevin to be told to get inside like he was a small boy. I don't know what tempted me to this old man, but whatever it was, I regret it so much. Before Kevin went inside his house, he asked for my numbers and told me that he would like to have friends around the neighborhood, since he had recently moved this side. I gladly gave him that, and that was how we started getting along. I remember when he used to visit me at home, my parents welcomed him with warm hands. We got along pretty well. He had a very charming smile, I admired everything about him. When they say God took his precious time to make the most perfect human being. That was what he did with Kevin. His mother and father surely took time and chose which semens to use in order to give birth to a perfect man like him. As we got along, his stepdad would sometimes shout at him for spending time with me. I really don't know why. He was acting like I was the bad girl that any parent wouldn't be near their children. As much as I am an extrovert, I loved and still love going out and having fun. I was not a rebellious child that disappointed his parents. I was working at one of the good accounting firms in New York, name withheld for personal reasons, so I was not a disappointing child. So I would take Kevin out for some drinks as friends since he was not from Aurora, so I decided to show him our small town. I heard that he was visiting his mother since she was married to the stepdad, while he lived in Jersey City with his siblings only. Our friendship was a bliss, but his stepdad didn't like it, but we continued being friends despite his disapproval. One day I went to work, and to my surprise, Kevin's stepdad came to the office with regards to his business that was under rocks. He needed a tax manager to foresee where his business's tax money was going because in his own knowledge he was paying his business tax. So my boss transferred him to me, and I managed to find what was wrong with his business accounts. So I found out that his accountant was actually stealing money from his business, and he was not paying taxes as he was supposed to. That time I didn't even tell Kevin that his stepdad had come to my workplace because I respected my work ethics and protocols. So everything that I was discussing with my clients were confidential, and I didn't think he knew that his stepdad was going through a tax crisis. I once suspected a lot of pretense between them, but he was tolerating him for his mom's sake. And Kevin loved his mom to a point that he would rather invade a space of someone who didn't like him, so he would see his mom. The relationship he had with his mom was really beautiful. His mom was a housewife. So you understand why Kevin loved visiting her. Because I am sure if she was working, he was not going to visit because his stepdad was home most of the time. I think that stepdad was into something illegal, I don't know what, but he was doing something doggy. He looked a bit off and intimidating. One would think he was a serial killer. I once asked Kevin how he was putting up with his stepdad and how his mom agreed to marry a scary man like that. To my surprise, my father was a friend of the stepdad. I found out that during a Thanksgiving holiday, Mom had invited them. I didn't like the way he was looking at me. I had noticed him looking at me like I was his favorite candy at a candy store. He was undressing me with his eyes, and that made me really uncomfortable. But I didn't tell that to anyone or took it seriously because he was old and my father's friend, and I couldn't just say something that I had no proof of right. The stepdad kept coming to my workplace, claiming he needed help with his business books. I didn't understand why because he had employees in his business, unless he was doing something illegal. But nonetheless, even those who do illegal businesses have employees, right? So it puzzled me to see him more often at my workplace, worst part, asking for my help, while he acts like a crazy bull when he is at his house, or when he sees me with Kevin, he would just become, I don't know how I can put, maybe a bear that is high on cocaine, trying to explain the stepdad's crazy act whenever I'm with Kevin. Time passed. Kevin kept coming to visit his mother, and we would spend a lot of time together. One would think we were dating, but we were not, because my mother once asked me what was going on between Kevin and I because she had seen the way he looked at me and the way he suddenly loved visiting his mom. I didn't pay any attention to that, because it didn't come to me that his visitations had become more regular than before. To tell the truth, the more I spent time with Kevin, the more I fell for him. I don't know if it was just a meaningless crush or it was the love that I felt, but I was feeling something for him. I wanted and longed for more than a friendship, you know. But I would just tell myself that I was crazy if I thought I would get a perfect guy like Kevin. Surely he had a perfect girlfriend like him in Jersey City, maybe a model, I don't know. I tried showing him hints that I wanted more than a friendship, but he would either act dumb or he would bluntly ignore any action I did. I know it was kind of sluttish of me to try and show the guy that I wanted him, but I couldn't hold myself. His lips were so appetizing to a point that sometimes I would just stare at them when he talks and imagine myself tasting them someday. It's crazy, right? Funny thing that had happened was that whenever I spent time with Kevin, he would tell me that one day he would make me his lover. He was a smooth and sweet talker, you know. Yes, I felt the same way as him, but I never thought he was serious about what he said. So I took it as a joke. He would always remind me that one day he was going to fetch me, so I would move with him to Jersey City, and that I was his future lover. But he wanted to fix something first. I took all that as a joke and thought he was just saying everything, because he wanted me to feel special. Not knowing that he was actually confessing his true feelings, you know, I was pretty much in denial because there was no way a guy like Kevin would see a future with just a simple girl like me. I was just a simple and ordinary girl from Aurora who had a good job but was not lucky when it came to relationships. I was somehow self-doubting myself because of my past. Weeks turned to months. Kevin had stopped visiting. I thought he was busy with his girlfriend from Jersey City. That thought made me kind of jealous because I liked the guy, but he never noticed me. And another thing, I missed being in his presence. During those months, I tried calling him, but his phone was not going through, which made me worried, and I felt lonely because he had been the best friend I had never had. But all of a sudden, he decided to ghost me. I stayed with the guilt that maybe he saw my flirtatious acts and decided to stop being friends with me. But I would ask myself why he didn't tell that to me in the face, rather than to just ghost me. I was angry at him for acting like a coward. I was kind of disappointed at him for the coward act he did. Little did I know that his very own stepdad was the actual reason why Kevin was no longer visiting Aurora. It saddened me when I found out that, and worst part, I didn't know where Kevin stayed. I just knew that he stayed in Jersey City, and that was all. The stepdad once approached me and asked me to help him with some papers at his house. At first, I bluntly refused because the man was scaring me. And why the sudden change of heart? I mean, he never even greeted me, even if we bumped into each other in shops. Then he came to my house asking me to help him with papers. It was just hard buying that. It took him to ask my father that he needed my help with his papers since I was working at an accounting firm. Obviously, my father would ask me to help him on his behalf. I tried explaining to my father how scared I was of the guy, but decided to talk me out of it, so I eventually agreed. I mean, most of the time I was doing nothing at home. I was bored. Kevin was no longer visiting, and he had ghosted me all of a sudden. It did sting to me that he had changed on me right when I had thought I had found a friend. As much as I loved going out a lot, but I didn't have any friends, and Kevin became the friend I had never had. I hated him for going AWOL on me like that. I was also disappointed at myself for pushing the guy away because of my slutty actions. Days passed. I went to the stepdad's house, and to my surprise, Kevin's mother was not around, which made me kind of uncomfortable. I asked him where his wife was, and he told me that she had gone to Jersey City to visit her children. I asked myself, why would a woman leave his children behind and go live in another city? I mean, if I had children, I would never leave them all alone and move to another city. Some mothers' parents would rather leave their children behind so they would live with their man. I just didn't understand it. So Mr. Spencer, stepdad, showed me the papers he wanted me to help him with. We went through them together. I showed him where things were wrong, like the transactions of his business and what made the business delay paying their taxes. There were a lot of loopholes in his business's spreadsheets, but I managed to help and explain to him what was happening. He then tried to ask me to come and work for him, but I politely refused. I mean, I loved my job and I didn't see myself working for any other company. To my surprise, the stepdad was not all bad as I had thought or seen him. He was actually cool and friendly. So time passed. I kept going to his house, to help him, of course. He was also a great distraction for me to not think about Kevin. Yes, I missed him, but it didn't come to me that he missed me as well. Mr. Spencer was a fun guy. He was also smart, and he taught me a lot about businesses that I didn't know. That was how we became close. He was like an uncle that I had never had. Little did I know that the big jackal had actually an agenda to get me. Time passed, and I had become a regular at Mr. Spencer's home. His wife, Kevin's mom, knew that I was helping Mr. Spencer with his business books, but she didn't notice the way we had become close. Mr. Spencer had become what I call a mentor or a guardian I had never had. He was teaching me a lot about businesses, which made me have thoughts of starting my own business eventually. I once told him that, and he said he was going to give me the capital to start whatever business I wanted to start. Well, that was an appetizing offer, but I couldn't accept it. On the other hand, Kevin came once to see his mother, but we didn't talk. It was like we were total strangers, and that broke my heart because I had thought we were on good terms. I tried asking him on social media. He never responded to any of my texts or calls. I wondered what had happened or what had he heard about that would make him act weird and cold towards me. My heart would always shut whenever I think about it, and it did hurt me a lot to be in the dark about what was eating him. Was I in love with the guy? Months passed. I got tired of waiting and crying over Kevin. I mean, it was not like we were dating or something. So as hard as it was to forget about him, I tried. The guy had ghosted since I don't know when. Even the heart that loves also gets tired, right? What infuriated me the most was that he made me believe that I would somehow be his girlfriend, or we would be as close and tight as we were till eternity. But I had thought wrong. Instead, I got hurt and waited on something that was just a dream to me. During those months, Mr. Spencer became not only my mentor, but also my best friend. He gave me the attention that even my own father didn't give me. He became my motivator and the best guardian. Mom tried warning me about being close with Mr. Spencer the way we were close, but I didn't listen. My mother would even ask what had happened between Kevin and I would not give her any answers because I also didn't know what had happened between Kevin and I. Mr. Spencer once invited me to one of his business trips because his wife was not feeling well to travel. So, as his tax manager, yes, I eventually took his job offer, he asked me to go with him. When I told my parents about that, there was a huge argument between Mom and Dad. My father thought it was a great opportunity for me to learn more about business, and that Mr. Spencer had been a good mentor, while my mother was against everything. My mother said Mr. Spencer was up to something, and if I was not careful, I would become like one of his past victims. Only if I had listened to my mother. Sick. So Mr. Spencer and I went to the United Arab Emirate, UAE, for the business trip. I fell in so much love with the country. It was so beautiful. I even wished to move to it one day with Kevin, of course. Mr. Spencer booked us separate rooms, which I appreciated a lot. Later on, he asked me to wear it nicely. I was going to be his date at some business gala dinner. The man just did the unthinkable and gave me money to purchase a dress. As much as I was not comfortable with the way he was looking at me, I loved the dress I had chosen. After the gala dinner, we went to our separate rooms. My heart and soul longed for Kevin, but he wasn't there. I tried calling him with an international number. He answered, but when he heard it was me, he dropped the call, so can you imagine how heartbroken I was when he did that? As I had finished taking a shower, Mr. Spencer knocked into my room and asked me to help him with something urgently. Mind you, that time I was only in my hotel gown, so I went to open the door to let him in. He stared at me like he was looking at something he liked or loved. It really made me uncomfortable and felt like I was not dressed. I asked what he wanted me to help him with. He didn't answer me. Instead, he just complimented me and my body. That somehow made me feel beautiful because no guy had ever complimented me or my body, not even my ex-boyfriend. Well, my ex-boyfriend was a womanizer, so he never cared about how my body looked, but instead, he would always find a way to make me doubt myself. Almost my whole life, I had been body shamed. You know, always being told and reminded how imperfect your body shape is and how bad I looked. So hearing someone or having someone compliment me and my body always does something to me. It raises my self-esteem a little. But on another thought, I would doubt someone who compliments my body would say it genuinely and mean it. I mean, because my ex-boyfriend would compliment me whenever he wanted some intimacy, then I would think he meant it. But things change whenever we get into an argument, or I find out that he was cheating. He would remind me how bad-looking I was and how my body was badly shaped compared to the girls that he was cheating on me with. But the way Mr. Spencer was looking at me made me think that he meant it, and he had been complimenting me since we went to the gala dinner that he had asked me to accompany him to. The way his stares were intense, they made me uncomfortable, so I excused myself. So I would go to the bathroom and change to proper clothes, because I wouldn't, and I couldn't change in front of him since the hotel room has only one bedroom with an ensuite. When I got into an ensuite, I was able to breathe since I was holding my breath and felt goosebumps over my body. I didn't know why I felt like that, but I did. I took them as my mentor and my father's friend. Was I falling for him? But nah, I wasn't. After I'd changed, I joined him in the room. We started working, going through what he wanted us to go through, but I felt his eyes stinging on my body. So I tried to distract him and get him to shift his focus. I asked if he had eaten so we could order. Instead of answering my question, he started touching my cheeks and brushing them. My heart was beating so fast to a point that I didn't even know how to react and what to do, so I just went mute. He started complimenting me again, telling me some sweet words. My mind just froze. I didn't even think of the circumstances that would come if his wife was to find out what her husband was doing. I felt butterflies on my stomach when he kissed me. To tell the truth, I don't remember and know what happened after, but I found myself kissing him back but backed out after. I had realized that I had made a huge mistake. I had a huge love crush on his stepson, and I was still heartbroken by the fact that he had ghosted me for no valid reason. Wasn't that being a coward? The stepdad kissed me again, and that time it went too far because I was also feeling the heat. I had never gotten a kiss or been intimate with a male person after my ex-boyfriend, who I broke up with 2 years ago. So imagine the drought and hunger for sexual engagement I had. It was bad. The kiss got intense to a point that no one was thinking about anything but was in the moment, and we made love. To tell the truth, I didn't regret any moment that I had with Mr. Spencer. Why would you feel guilty for something you both did, and you both were adults? Plus, I was single and sexually frustrated, so he helped me remember that I was still alive and I was still a woman, even though he was a married man, but I cared less. One thing that I had regretted was that we were careless and too caught up in the moment, to a point that we even forgot to use a protection. I didn't know if the guy had a sickness or what, meaning I risked getting sick and pregnant just to get in the moment. I was a fool, right? Months later, the thing that had started in the hotel room in the United Arab Emirate, UAE, between Mr. Spencer and I kept going on until we went back home. I won't lie and say I didn't enjoy every moment of it, but I did. Yes, what we did was wrong in every way, but I had a good time. Actually, I had the most splendid time of my life. We destroyed a lot of relationships, and I would always feel so bad about it. During those months, Mr. Spencer and I continued seeing each other secretly, regardless of the outcome of it. So one cold summer day, Mr. Spencer had invited me to his house.